yourself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on that.
Good evening and welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. It's Monday night, which means it's ladies' night, and it's good evening to Holly. And we've got a new presenter, Michelle. Good evening.
Hi. Hello. Nice to be here, guys.
Yeah, good to see you. Good to have you on board. We always start with a question, and that is, how long have you supported Newcastle? And can you remember what your first game was?
Do you know what? I've supported them really probably since I was about 15, and I went away. I can't remember what my first game was, to be honest, and I can't manage a season ticket at the moment. Obviously, that's my ultimate dream, to be able to go every week. Some people are on the lucky, but I haven't been able to do so. But I watch them every game, and I watch you every night, Steve. It's been great over this lockdown. It's just been such a help for everybody, I think. Obviously, just what you do through the day, your job, and then obviously just being able to have that on a night time's been brilliant. So hats off to you all anyway.
Oh, thank you. And what do you do? What's your work?
So I'm a community nurse. So obviously through the pandemic, it's been quite heavy. So being able to come in and obviously just unwind, it's been unwinding for me, to be honest. So not being able to go far and do your walks, but then obviously watch your shows on a night, it's been great.
Oh, brilliant. Well, thanks very much for agreeing to come on. And, we'll put a shout out for new people. We've had some new people on last night. We had some new people on Match Day Live. And now we've got Michelle on Ladies' Night. So thank you for putting your head above the parapet, as we say. And tonight I want to make it a Steve Bruce special, which will please Stu in the chat, who always says Bruce out, although he has seemed to have gone on a bit of a sabbatical and said he's prepared to give him a little bit of leeway this week, but after the results have improved slightly. But yes, the Chronicle billed it as an explosive upfront interview with Talk Sport this morning. It was on at 10:30. Some of you will have heard it live. Some of you will be playing catch up now. To give you a little bit of an idea as what was said. Well, he insisted that he should always have been judged when he had a fully fit squad available. He addressed his future amid the steadfast support he received from owner Mike Ashley. He said it is difficult to manage expectation at Newcastle. That is obviously still there. He also referred to the Alan Shearer signing and, those days have long gone. Cheers, Steve. Discussed the takeover every supporter wants to see. Well, not every supporter, not our trolls. Dismissed talk of thinking about resigning during Newcastle's difficult run. He also hit out at the unjust criticism that he received from a national journalist. Doesn't take much working out who he was referring to there. And he also insisted that the Graham Jones appointment to the backroom staff was his decision after interviewing him in London. He explained the reason as well behind the "my way" comments. You'll remember that he said it's my way, the gloves are off. And he also addressed the futures of Joe Willock and Alan St. Maximin. He also backed Callum Wilson for a call-up to England's Euro 2020 squad. Now, as always, he was on TalkSport with Simon Jordan and Danny Murphy was there. The host was Jim White, good friend of mine, Jim, and always seems to pull off the big interviews. So, first of all, Holly, did you hear it, or have you had time to play a catch-up by having a read of what he said? What was your take?
I didn't hear it live, but I listened to the Chronicle's little report on it. I thought that part of it was like, okay, I don't think a lot of people were going off it, like saying he's totally disrespecting the fans. I don't think he was, but some of the comments were stupid, really. It's just typical from Bruce again. I think he constantly embarrasses himself in the media, which he's done ever since he came to Newcastle. So that's really nothing new, to be honest. I think we all know the journalist he's referring to is Craig Hope. Do I think Craig Hope's criticism was unjust? No. I actually loved that little bit of a backlash that he got from Craig Hope. I think was well deserved. And Bruce says, judge him on when the players are fit. No, that's not how management works. Any manager gets judged on how they perform across the season. And regardless of what team you're managing, there's always going to be injuries across the season. So it's just utter rubbish to say judges when everyone's fit, because that's very not much of the time in the season at all. So I don't understand where he's coming from. The Alan Shearer days are long gone. Yeah, they are. We know that. We're not stupid, but we want to see us move forward and get back to a bit of success, because ultimately for 14 years it's been utter dross and we're bored of it now. And I think that Steve Bruce totally reflects what Mike Ashley wants for this club. No ambition, yes man, happy to finish 17th and never wants to progress. And I think that's exactly what Steve Bruce's values are. I don't think he cares about Newcastle. I don't think he's passionate about the club, or he wants us to progress in the future. Whereas other managers and the fans do want us to do that. So I think Steve Bruce just has a very clashing personality and clashing mindset from the rest of the fan base, and that's clearly reflected in that TalkSport interview.
Mad Mark says, how ridiculous is it for a Premier League head coach to go on a national sports radio station at 10:30 a.m. on a Monday morning to get a pat on the back from his media mates after a mediocre season? This tells you all you need to know about the man when any other top flight coach will be sitting in the team room analysing the performance and result and getting the squad ready for the next opponent. So it hasn't gone down well with Mad Mark. Michelle, what's your take on Bruce's outburst today? I mean, it was well-natured. Certainly was with friends that he's had, because TalkSport have backed him from day one. But what was your thoughts on that?
So again, I didn't watch it live either, Steve, but I've caught up on bits of it and I try to watch it back on TalkSport, so I've watched some of it. But again, I think much along what everybody else is saying, we're not surprised by his interviews and what he says during his interviews, you know. And the thing again about the Shearer days are long gone, much the same as you, Holly. Yeah, we know that, and it was great. It was enjoyable at the time, and we would like to have something like that back. It would be good to look forward to. But when you think about the comments that he did make, obviously with regards to having a full squad and all of that, he did have a full squad though for some of that time, and his results still didn't reflect that, did it? And then obviously now he's back to a full squad, and it's unpredictable, isn't it? So some days he's got everyone playing and he's getting really good results, and other times he isn't. But yeah, I think the problem is he's a well-liked man, isn't he, in football? And I think everyone's got nice things to say about him, and no one can say and think we're deluded fans, which again, you know, no one's saying he's not a nice guy. I think I have met him as well, and he is a nice guy to talk to. But obviously, for management of our club, are we deluded because we think that? But yeah, that's what my perspective is on that.
Was that? I mean, you know, you don't have to say, but was your meeting? Was it just a social one? Did you bump into him over the you know, the aisles in the shop or something, or was he out walking his dog?
No, so to be honest, I've got a daughter who's blind and has cerebral palsy, and she plays for the Newcastle United Foundation. So she plays blind football, and he actually came to the session at the beginning when he first took over the club. So he came to, you know, Lightfoot Stadium at Walker. He popped along there, and he was really pleasant, and he spent lovely time with the kids and gave them all, you know, all credit and spoke to them all. He was really polite, nice. Well, as I say, seemed to have a lovely personality, and you know, I'm not doubting that at all. I just think for our football club, does he have the right management skills? I'm not sure.
Yeah, you're the second person on the show who's met him. Steve Hasty bumped into him while he was walking his dog the other week. So, you know, we're starting to get a collection of people. But it's nice to hear that. Look, that is part of his job. He's the manager, you know, and to go out and do stuff like that is great. So, and I've got to be honest, I know a lot of the ex-pros who I work with have all got good words to say about it. I've mentioned a few on the show before, and we've seen it. You know, some of them have come out and defended Steve Bruce. But, you know, for me, yeah, you're right, Michelle. He came into the club. He wasn't anybody's first choice. He wasn't even the club's first choice. And ultimately, you know, he's not really the manager for us. But, you know, he's kept us up. Well, let's focus on a little bit of the interview today. I think the one thing we all want to know is about Alison Maximin, etc. And you know, I look at this answer. He's talking about his future. He said, I said when we signed him, he was going to be someone who gets you off the edge of your seat. And how often do you feel like that about an individual player? He was wonderful, natural ability, and it wouldn't surprise me if other teams are looking, because his ability is there for everybody to see. He is right. Nobody wants Newcastle to be in a relegation fight, and he is a very gifted individual and young, of course. The last thing we want to be doing is selling our better players, that is for sure. I mean, Holly, for me, Alison Maximin, I think he stays if the takeover goes through. But I fear for the summer if Steve Bruce and Mike Ashley are still here. And I think it could be, you know, au revoir to St. Maximin. What do you think?
No, I have to agree, Steve. I think it's the exact same. I think that'll be the case for a few players as well, especially St. Maximin, because in that side, he's probably our standout player. In terms of most of our players are pretty basic, kind of 6 out of 10 players. Again, no disrespect to them, but then you've got St. Maximin, who's like that bit of freshness to the side. He really gets the fans excited. He's got skill, he's got ability, and he's not afraid to do bits of tricks and actually entertain the fans, which is very different from a lot of the squad. And there'll be a lot of teams, certainly in the top 6, that I think will be looking for him, thinking that's someone that is still fairly young and he's got a way bigger chance to progress at a better side with better coaching. But I think that if the takeover goes through, St. Maximin would love to stay because I think he loves the club and the city and the fans. But if it doesn't happen and we're stuck with Bruce and Ashley or we're in limbo, I think he will be looking to move on because, to be honest, he's kind of held back at Newcastle right now. There's not much more he can do. And the players that he's playing alongside in the formation we play, I don't think it's getting the best out of him.
No, I don't think so either. What was your take on what he says about St. Maximin and Michelle? I think for me, we all know he's a great player, edge of the seat player. But can you see him sticking around if Steve Bruce is still the manager next season?
Again, no, I think come obviously end of season, if there is no change with our takeover, I do think somebody else will come in for him who can give him that sort of better coach and better team around him where he can aim a little bit higher than what he can here. I do like St. Maximin, I do agree, and I think he's really exciting player, and you know, you can see when he gets the ball and he runs, and you do get really excited when he does it, but he does it in fits and spurts, doesn't he? Like, it's not continuous throughout the game, and sometimes I find myself there going, just keep going. He has these real quiet spells, but then all of a sudden he'll go, won't he? And then you're like back on the edge of your seat, and that's the thing, isn't it? I just wish he would do it a little bit longer each game, really, instead of just keep stopping and starting. I get frustrated and then I get excited, so I'm all over the place when I'm watching him. But I do think some of the bigger clubs will probably come in from, you know, the elusive top 6. They'll probably come in to try and take him in their squad. And I like the guy, you know, he's brilliant, isn't he? He's that exciting. He does stick out from our team. I totally agree with what you're saying, Holly.
Yeah, and I think as well, Holly, just about Joe Willock. I mean, you know, there wasn't a great deal said about Joe other than he's Arsenal's player. And from his perspective, if there's a possibility of bringing him back, he would love to do it. But again, you know, Willock's form's been so good, 5 goals since the turn of the year. Arsenal may want to keep him. I mean, we don't really know what Arsenal's future is with their manager. Are they going to stick with their manager, or are they going to get rid of him? And is the new manager going to want to keep a hold of him? It's a lot of unanswered questions in a minute. But can you see Joe Willock coming back to Newcastle?
Yeah, I can, to be honest. Even if we are still with Steve Bruce and Mike Ashley, certainly if the decision's his, because I think that Joe Willock knows that he's going to get a lot more game time playing for Newcastle. He's going to be a lot more well-respected and liked from the fans. Whereas if he goes to Arsenal, he'll kind of be just sitting on the bench or in the reserves. And I don't think the fans really rate him there. He knows that if he comes here, he's got the chance to be a real star, because we don't have the class players that Arsenal do have. You know, all the Aubameyangs, the Lacazettes, and all of the top talent that they have. Our squad's a lot more poor. If he goes to Arsenal, he's not going to stand out like he does in our squad. He's just going to kind of go unnoticed.
Yeah, I mean, it would be a nightmare for us not to get him back next season, Michelle, wouldn't it? If he's made such a good impression. But there's been talk on this show as well about potentially Kennedy, for example. He was great the first loan spell. Came the second loan spell. He was a shadow of his former self. Didn't really seem to fit in. So what's your take on Willock? Would you like to see him back?
Oh, I would love to see him back. I think even just the games that he's played in, we've really, we've done well. He's come on, he's scored, but also just his confidence is growing. I think you can see that as well when he's playing. And he knows he was fighting for a place in that team, doesn't he? And he knows, I will get me start. I'm keep trying hard. And I think his confidence, and again, he's exciting. I love watching him when he gets the ball as well and he goes. But even his social media, he seems like he's really enjoying his time here, isn't it? And just the fans again, the city, and I think it'd be a brilliant signing for us. I really do.
Yeah, I would love to see him come back, at least, even if it was another loan, then I would be happy with that. We've talked about Craig Hope on the show before, Holly. I'm hoping to get him on before the end of the season, or at least at the end of the season, for a bit of a season summary. Steve Bruce touched on him, and I was surprised that he did. And this is what he said. On the club ban for the national journalist, he said he needs putting in his place. Your radio station gives him air and makes him feel a little bit special. He is totally unbalanced. It is always negative, and that for me is totally wrong. What do you make of that, Holly, when you're talking about a national journalist who still, I understand, banned from the ground?
It's a very strong statement, isn't it? It does seem a bit strange that he'd say that now, to be honest. I think if I was Steve Bruce, I'd just want to put it to bed and leave it, not to try and cause more problems, because I think they've had enough over the season. I've said my opinion on Craig Hope before. He's one of the journalists in terms of Newcastle that I rate the most. I think he's a really good journalist. He's certainly someone that I think is very passionate for the club. He's not afraid to voice his opinions. And if he thinks something, a manager's not giving him the time of day, he'll go and tell them to their face, and hats off to him for that, because you don't get many journalists actually that brave. He's been banned from the club, which I think is totally pathetic. The fact that Bruce can't take a little bit of criticism, so he bans him, like, no, just grow up. You've been in this industry now for your whole life. How are you not used to getting criticism from journalists? I don't know. He really doesn't have the lack of kind of media training that he needed. But Craig Hope saying it's unjust, I don't think it is. I think he's been shocking this season. Somehow he's managed to turn it round. He deserves some credit for that. But he needs criticism. He's been shocking. Constantly the media's praising him because he's got so many friends in the media. And then there's one journalist comes out and speaks out against him, and he needs that to keep him level-headed. Because actually, I seen a comment a while ago on the screen from Stu, I think it was, and he was just saying about how Bruce doesn't care about the club, he's just in it because he wants the job. And I have to agree, and I think across the 18 months or however long he's been at the club, he has got too arrogant and too big for his boots, you could say, because he came into the job quite lucky to get it, and he knew that because no one wanted him here, and it was a job that was too big for him. He's managed to get it, and he should feel so privileged, but then he's coming out and constantly slagging off journalists, slagging off fans, and being like, oh, I don't deserve this criticism. So if anyone needs taking down a peg or two, I think it's Steve Bruce.
Yeah, it's strong words from Holly, Michelle. But yeah, I would agree. I think Craig Hope is, as a journalist, he's doing his job. And what did he really do? He came out and said that there was a problem in the dressing room, and there clearly was. And the problem was solved by bringing Graham Jones in, which we'll talk about in a bit. Graham Jones came in and obviously, he shook the dressing room up. He repaired the damage, if you like. And Matt Ritchie found himself back in the squad. Sean Longstaff found himself back in the squad. Paul Dummett found himself back in the squad. And then all three came back in the team. And essentially, they were the difference. So I don't know what Craig Hope has done wrong apart from his job. So what's your take on Bruce's views on Craig Hope?
So I think Bruce has obviously been asked questions that he just doesn't want to answer, does he? So it's like, I won't answer that, just out you go. And he's just banned him instead of just responding to the questions that were asked. And what Craig was obviously saying about the dressing room, and I think everybody knew that anyway, didn't they? So it probably didn't need Craig to confirm it, but I think we knew that there was something going on. But obviously, why can't he just answer the questions? He never seems to answer questions what are asked about specific things, and that frustrates you. I think if he comes out and speaks up and tells what is actually going on, the communication will be much better, and we'd all have a much better understanding. He might not give us much stick, is what you get, But yeah,
you know what I mean. Look, there is media training these days. Back in the 80s when Steve Bruce was playing, there wasn't media training. You just there wasn't as much TV coverage, of course. But nowadays there's media training. He clearly needs some because he's not being advised correctly for me. When he's got a camera in front of him, he's not the most confident person in front of a camera. He's not the most eloquent, shall we say, which isn't a bad thing. But at the same time, know your limitations, know what you can say, and certainly pick and choose what you're going to talk about. And this is where you see masters of the art like Jose Mourinho, Alex Ferguson, Kenny Dalglish. All of these managers had a specific way of dealing with the media. Kevin Keegan from Newcastle's day, Sir Bobby Robson, they wouldn't take questions or answer questions if they felt it was going to lead them down a certain avenue or lead them into trouble. And to be honest, he should have been advised that if there was any questions about Craig Hope, just to ignore it. But it just seems as if Steve Bruce has free rein on saying what he wants to say about anything. And I think that can be dangerous because, look, he's earned a few brownie points, clearly not of everybody. I speak as I try to be fair with people, but I think essentially what's happened over the last few weeks, Bruce deserved a bit of praise for. I've given him a bit of praise for it, and that's it. That's my opinion. I know not everyone's the same, but I think Michelle, that he should, he's gained those brownie points. That interview has probably made people shake their head again and just go, for God's sake.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And just back on a point that Holly was saying before about, when he took the job and that he wasn't everybody's first choice. And when I met him, it was pretty close to that point. And he did actually say that to me. I said, I was cracking on. I was like, I wish you luck, mate, doing your job, before I left. And he went, I'm going to need all the luck in the world. He went, because I know nobody wants us here. And he just laughed about me. I was laughing as well, but he was well aware that he was last person's choice and he would need some massive help. And, he would need the fans on board and all of that. But he was laughing about it, but it was interesting. He was like, no one wants us here. I know you do need to wish us luck, so does everybody else. I was like, see you later. But
he wasn't as confident, Holly, about his future. When he was asked about whether he knew what was going to happen or what was going on, on his future, he said, it's for others to decide. Most clubs will have big discussions and review the season. I'm a football person and it's still too early to retire yet. But those conversations will happen over the next couple of weeks, I'm sure. He did talk a little bit about the takeover, and this is what he had to say about that. He says, the takeover, we were all disappointed, and no more so than Mike. We were selling to the Saudi people that would generate the income of the likes of Man City. So what supporter wouldn't like to see that? Until that happens, I'll do the best I possibly can for the club. It's no secret Mike wants to sell the club, and for everybody, that is the best thing. Interesting that. Start with his managerial position. For me, that sounded a little bit like, he hasn't been given any guarantees for next season because, the club potentially feel as if the takeover is going to go through, Holly.
Yeah, I feel the same about the takeover, and I think that if it does go through, then Steve Bruce will be gone, so they can't guarantee him a future at the club because that wouldn't be fair to Steve Bruce because, like you say, you can't guarantee things. If the takeover goes through, you'll have to move on. You can't take us forward under new ownership. If it doesn't go through, I think he'll still be here. I think Mike Ashley will happily keep him on board. I think that he gets along well with Steve Bruce and they have a good relationship. I do find it quite interesting how he uses phrases such as until the deal goes through. Maybe he's got some type of positive information from Mike or Lee Charnley or whoever at the top of the club. And that would be great. He says the takeover is in the best interest of everyone sort of thing, apart from Steve Bruce. I think that's the thing that he missed out because if this goes through, he's gone. So I don't think he'll be wanting it to happen. Certainly not as a supporter either, because I don't believe that he is a Newcastle supporter, as I've said many times. But yeah, definitely in the summer, takeover goes through. It will be the best for the club. It's sounding like the club are confident from all kinds of aspects, and that's great. And if it does happen, then well done. And I think now that Steve Bruce has kept us up this season, he should leave with a little bit of respect. And I'll wish him the best of luck, to be honest. There'll be no bad feeling from me after he's turned the season around.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. What about you then, Michelle?
Yeah, much the same. If we get a stay up, which it's looking more likely that we are, you should leave on a bit of a positive, I suppose, and not be, people not be so negative around, right, we've stayed up, but it didn't work as well. And he maybe wasn't the right person for our club, but we've stayed up. We've got the takeover. Let's move forward from that. And again, just like Holly, wish him good luck, He seems a lovely man, but wish him good luck in his future career, really. But yeah, let's hope it goes through and he knows something, or someone at the club knows something, if he's obviously saying until. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, okay. Let's just say thank you to the sponsors. As always, a big shout out to the following guys and girls, and it's a big shout out to Spider VPN for all your internet security. They are the guys. Just Google Spider VPN. They are top of the Google search counter, and big thanks to the guys. They've been on board for the last 4 months, and they're coming on board with our events as well, which is great. So looking forward to speaking to the guys this week about that. Also, a big shout out to Scott and the lads at skipsandbins.com. Telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. Website www.skipsandbins.com. Easy contract, free and pay as you go waste collection. And there's the bee. That looks quite good. He looks like he's standing right next to you there, but he hasn't got a name. The bee. I did text Scott last night and was asking him about it, and he goes, "No, the bee doesn't actually have a name." So we might work on something with him to see whether we can get him get him christened. Buzz B is a little obvious, he says. That was what he said in the text. So big shout out to the lads at Skips and Bins anyway. Big shout out to John at Jab Signature, who's got his new range coming out very, very soon. And last but by no means least, John at qtechshop.co.uk, who's been going into overdrive with his T-shirts. The Cult one is his bestseller. Cult T-shirts are available at NUFCmatters.com, and there are his and hers. So there you go. There's the website. Have a look on there. He's put some hoodies up. Some Cult hoodies have gone up as well. With the weather we've had today, you might still need one. But well worth a visit. NUFCmatters.com. Pop on there and see what you fancy. And just a reminder that we are on 7 nights a week this week, and managing to keep up all the content, even though I'm back into work and doing a few bits and bobs. So tomorrow night, of course, is Tuesday night, and Liam will be joining me tomorrow. And then on Wednesday night, it is the Retro Show. I'll be joined by Steve Hasty and George and Neil Mitchell, Stu Penman and Steve Wilkinson. And we are looking at another retro team. And then Thursday night, I'll be joined by Supermac and Gibbo to look ahead to the Manchester City game. And then Friday night will be the Three Amigos, and then straight into Match Day Live for the Man City game. And looking forward to that, to be honest. Hopefully, with tonight's result, we will know that we are 100% safe and we can chill out and relax. And don't forget, the Steve Hasty T-shirt is up for grabs on my Twitter line. So if you go onto my timeline at Steve Wraith, it's pinned to the top. Randman T-shirt is available for the food bank. All proceeds going to the food bank. Big shout out to John at Q-Tech for making these T-shirts. They're absolutely brilliant. And I think we announced on Friday we're over the £5,300 mark that we've now raised from those T-shirts. And the other thing to mention, of course, is the watch. This one-off watch is also available. How do you get a chance to be added into the bucket for that? Well, it's very simple. You make a donation to the Matchday bucket. And that is on for each match day, nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk, the Matchday bucket. If you make a donation into that website, whatever it is, whether it's 20 pence, £1, whatever, you go into the lucky draw for that watch. So a big thank you again to John for his wonderful donation. And we're joined by Lily. Good evening.
Hi, you're right.
Good to see you. I managed to get in from work. Have you been battling the snow and the storms?
Oh, it's been horrendous. It's been like every season in like 20 minutes. It's shocking. It really is shocking.
Yeah. It has been. Well, I know you've caught a little bit of the show because I saw you in the chat. So you know what we're doing. We're going through the Steve Bruce interview today. We're going to move on to the Graham Jones appointment, which is what Steve Bruce said about Graham Jones's arrival at the club. And this was quite interesting. He says, "It is part and parcel of the whole thing at the time. People said the club appointed someone above me, as if I would accept that. When things are going against you, you can do one of three things: change your team, change your formation, or add somebody to lift us and give us different ideas on the training ground. I'm delighted we chose Graham, and he's helped us enormously. But the other staff, the two Steves, Clemenson Agnew, Steve Harper, Ben Dawson, they've helped enormously too. You can't stop the talk where you think, hang on a minute, this is ridiculous. Graham was my appointment. I interviewed him in London and there were a couple of others in the frame. It was a difficult decision for him because he was going well at Bournemouth. But the big thing was him being a Geordie and his love for it. And that played a big part." So, Holly, Graham Jones, we've discussed it on the show before. I think most Newcastle fans feel that the upturn in form was really down to Graham Jones coming in. I certainly do. I think there was a change in formation. I think there was a change in training. And I also think that a lot of the players who fell out with Steve Bruce made a made a beeline for Graham Jones, and he got them back on track. What's your views on what Steve Bruce has had to say about that today?
I do think that he has had an impact on the turnaround in form. I think we changed to that diamond formation in the 4-3-3 that really suited us for a period of time until we got injuries. Also, when there was unrest in the dressing room with Steve Bruce, like you said, he seemed to get players back on side. And I think that Steve Bruce is more of a friend to the players, whereas Graham Jones is more of a professional, which is really needed in the team, especially when we're in a relegation fight. But in terms of it being like his appointment and stuff, like this is just my opinion, but I genuinely don't think Steve Bruce makes any decisions. We know he got given the title head coach, not manager, and I really feel like all of the decisions are made above him, like from Lee Charnley, etc. I don't think that Steve Bruce honestly gets much of a say. I don't believe the players were his signings. I know that can be quite controversial, but I genuinely don't think that. I think he would have had an input, but I don't think the final say would have been down to him. I mean, you've seen in the window he came in, we brought the likes of Joe Linton in before he'd actually agreed a contract. They were already like done deals. So I think Graham Jones, they would have told him that he needs to sort something out. Maybe he would have got a choice between a few people, but I think it would have been forced to bring someone in to try and sort it out before it was too late, sort of thing. And I think that it would have been a hard decision for Graham Jones to leave Bournemouth because obviously he was doing all right. They went down, but ultimately, yeah, I do think Graham Jones is a big Newcastle fan, and that would have been the thing that turned him to come to Newcastle. I don't think Steve Bruce was particularly happy at the time that Graham Jones came in. Now I think they're a bit more on good terms with each other, which is great to see. But initially, I don't think that was the case.
Yeah, I mean, being a Geordie does play a big part for a lot of people coming back to the club. And Graham Jones is a lad from the Felon, from the Gateshead side, but he's done a cracking job. Lily, what's your take on Steve Bruce's comments today about the Graham Jones appointment? I found it strange that he was emphasising the fact that he'd been to London to bring him to interview him, and this is the second time he's mentioned that other people were linked with a job. But I mean, do you believe that?
No, not for a second, because we all know, we've all commented before, he was acting like a petulant child that was spitting his dummy out when the appointment happened. We've all seen the way he looked at him during matches and when things were being said and stuff. So no, is he trying to make himself sound better to sucker the fans in? Because, right, we've done well now, this is where we're going, let's see if we can make people feel better about things. But I think sometimes he thinks these things through, or doesn't, as the case may be, and he just lets his mouth go before his brain's kicked in, and he thinks that he's going to look better now if he says, oh no, I was behind it all the time, yes, I knew about it, I interviewed him, there were several people, but he was well, no, because you can't have gone from that to how you are now. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And I just think he's suffering from delusions at the minute, bless him. And it's but I agree with Holly, we all did start to pick up, and the playing seemed to get better, and maybe Jones did act as mediator around the time that Bruce and some of the players weren't talking. But then is that because of Bruce being the petulant child and not getting his own way? And Jones was like, look, you need to sort it out because we can't have this disharmony amongst the team. So yeah, I think Bruce has lost it a little bit, maybe, who knows.
Yeah, I mean, I think he needs some media training. I said that before you came on, but I think you're right. I think you're right with that phrase, Lily, mediator. I think that's what Graham Jones has become, and I think he came in. He quickly established that the fallout between Richie and Longstaff and Bruce and Dummett, it has to be said, was the big problem, and those issues were resolved, and he became a middleman, and he managed to sort things out. Otherwise, I can't see how that could have been resolved. Michelle, what's your take then on the Graham Jones situation? Do you think it was a Steve Bruce, master plan, and he was the one making the decisions, or do you think this was down to Lee Charnley?
I don't think it was definitely not Steve's decision. I think it came from above higher than that, didn't it? We all know how things were going at that time. But then again, Steve Bruce's body language on the sideline, towards Jones was just it was plain to see, wasn't it? You could lip read what he was saying coming out of his mouth. It just, but obviously Graham, I think he definitely has made a change, to the way that we're playing, but also the dressing room. You're right, like Matt Ritchie and Dummett and Matt Ritchie, by the way, I think that guy's done amazing again since he's came back in. He's put all that behind him, and he's just picked up and ran with it. And I think he needs to take some credit as well for where we are, to be quite honest. He shouts out, he gets everybody going, and I feel he's a motivator, and possibly is he a mediator as well. But I do agree, I think that the appointment is worked well, and he's put some more sort of tactics, formations in, but as well he's acted as that mediator, and he's got the team members back on board and like playing again for the club. But also he's a Geordie and he's a fan, isn't he? And it's like, come on, we'll kind of go down again, lads. Let's get this sorted. And I think he's probably helped pull everybody together as well as his knowledge and skills, and he's put them into play as well.
Yeah, I think you're right, 100%. But it's one of those situations where we'll never really know. We'll never know who the person was who made the decision to bring Graham Jones in. I think all we can say that we can agree on is that we're all thankful that he did. On criticism that Steve Bruce has received, this is interesting as well, Holly. So we'll come back to you. It's a fantastic football club, and if you're a Geordie or from there, it is unique. The vast majority of people you speak to on the street, could be Michelle and Steve Hasty, are wishing me the best of luck and telling me to take no notice of the rubbish. It's been very difficult, and certain journalists who've been on your show, well, back to the journalist again, didn't want me here from day one. I was never going to be good enough. That's fair enough. That's his opinion, and you just have to accept that. But when it is built on the whole thing, just be a bit balanced. You have to accept criticism. It's part and parcel of it, but I think at times it's been unjust. I've always said to try and judge me when I have a fit squad. Here is the big thing. Newcastle in the last 14 or 15 years have been in the bottom half of the Premier League. 14 or 15 years, there's a significance with that, isn't there, Mike Ashley? We would all love to see Newcastle United being back to signing the Alan Shearers of this world for world record fees, but that just isn't going to happen. It's difficult managing the expectation that is obviously still there. Holly, as a Newcastle fan, how does that make you feel?
Quite annoyed. I think it's just very hypocritical of him to kind of say what he has said. Just saying, obviously I mentioned before about the injuries. That's literally your job as a manager, to work with your injuries and make the best of what you've got available. That's what every manager has to do. In terms of it's like getting criticism, I know he's referring to Craig Hope, but just generally as a Newcastle fan, I'll kind of respond to what he's saying. When Steve Bruce came into the club, I didn't want him here, and I feel most people were the same. But once he was appointed, I was more than prepared to give him a full chance, and I wanted him to do well. Of course, if Steve Bruce does well, so does Newcastle. Why would I want Steve Bruce to fail? That would not make sense at all. And I think Craig Hope will be the same. It goes for anyone that likes Newcastle as a football club, as a fan, whatever. They wanted him to do well, of course they did. Like, that's just... like I said, if Bruce does well, so does the club. So I really don't understand what he's coming from there. People haven't got an agenda against him. Again, I think it's a bit of an arrogance thing. Imagine thinking you're that important that people are literally out to get you from day one. Like, literally no one cares. Like, they just want the football club to do well. They're not bothered about you, Steve. Like, just stop. It's just kind of embarrassing, but going out on the street, I think, yeah, people would be positive towards him. I would be. I'd say, listen, best of luck for the game or whatever. But I don't think everyone's saying, oh, don't listen to the nonsense. It's not nonsense. You've literally been appalling. You've managed to turn it around by some miracle. You're so lucky that you've been able to do that. But don't take that for granted, because I don't know how he's done it, because he has been shocking and he's just made mistake after mistake. And not just on the pitch, off the pitch as well. He's been a nightmare.
Yeah, no, yes. What's your take on that, Lily? What he's had to say about the criticism, etc.
Well, it's you're going to get criticism no matter what. Granted, know what, wherever you are, he seems to relish in it and then manages to twist it and make out that we're the worst fans ever in the world because we didn't want him and he was this and he was. Well, no, yes, we all know that you were the 11th choice for the managing role. Yes, we've been told this plenty of times before. But same as Holly said, you want your team to do well, so you are going to give him your support. Yes, you've had criticism because you say you're going to do it a different way, and then you carry on doing it the way you've been doing it before. The gloves have come off. When did the gloves come off? Did anybody ever actually see when the gloves came off? Because I sure as heck didn't. We've had some, like you said, we've had some very lucky wins and some very lucky pass-throughs, and we are where we are now, thankfully. But that's the lads on the pitch. It's very much, and it'll continue to be criticised because that's what we do. We're never happy. Even when we're happy, we're not happy. And we will criticise. But I don't know. He makes me laugh. He really does. He brings it on himself as well, I think, sometimes, because he knows that he's going to get it after the match, post-match. Oh, I'll just talk about how well the other team did. Well, how about how your lads did? You don't praise them, but you're quick to throw them under the bus if they've done wrong. And so that's why you're being criticised. So, stand up and accept your criticism, mate, because in a day-to-day job, you get feedback, and you pick up and you learn from it. And he doesn't seem to learn from it. He just seems to just carry on. He doesn't care. I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. And then he wonders why he gets it even more. So, yeah, he's a very strange person. He really is.
Yes, yeah. Michelle, what do you make about these comments about the criticism that he's taken?
Much the same as everybody else has said, to be honest. I think it goes back, doesn't it, to that sort of media training? Just something about the way he presents himself when he does the interviews. But one thing I did want to say actually was at one point I was really quite concerned about his own mental health. I thought, would you not walk away here? Because, there was a lot going on, wasn't there, with regards to social media, how results were going. And obviously his son was coming out and saying things as well. And it was just like, when would you actually say this isn't for me now? This is, I can't, for my own mental health, I can't deal with this. What, would other people not have walked away at that point from that? But yeah, it is. I don't get it, to be honest. I don't know. I think as well as you said, in your day-to-day job, you do get criticism, but it's constructive criticism sometimes. But it's like you can't take any criticism at all. So that's mine.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. It's to ban the only person who was giving you some serious criticism is absolutely crazy. My Way is a famous song by Frank Sinatra. You're probably too young to remember it, but there was those My Way comments. I have tried to change things very early, and I quickly realised we weren't capable. We were used to sitting deep, and the players were comfortable playing that way. I inherited 6 centre-halves at the club. After 15 to 18 months staying that way, after an awful result at Sheffield United, I wanted to change, if possibly, the way that we were playing. The result was painful for everyone. That is what I meant by it. I wanted it to be slightly different to the low block, and there is nothing wrong with that. Rafa is a Champions League winner and got them out of the Championship like that. They were comfortable playing that way. I didn't change it. I left it alone simply because it was the best way forward. So what's your views on that, Holly? What do you think about that?
Since Bruce came into the club, that's the thing that's annoyed me the most about him. He constantly bangs on about Rafa Benitez. It's really pathetic now. He just after every game, right, we could win a game and he'd have a pop at Rafa Benitez. Would lose, he'd have a pop at Rafa Benitez. And he's doing it again now. What are you doing? Rafa's gone, right? A lot of fans loved Rafa. I was one of them. We'd love to see him back. But at the moment, you're the one in the job, so stop reflecting back on past managers. It just shows that you're really insecure, to be honest. You're just embarrassing yourself again. And it's just ridiculous. Like, we're stuck in this system playing 5 at the back or whatever he's saying, right? But then we're not, because Graham Jones came in, we reverted to a 4 at the back, and we did really well, so we're clearly not stuck in that formation. He's saying the gloves are off all the time. We never actually did anything to do with his way. It was his choice to stick with Rafa's tactics for over a year when he came in. Nobody else's but his. So I don't know why he's kind of taking some kind of blame. I don't understand. It's really, really weird. I think he's had more than enough opportunities to change it around and do it his way, whatever that is. We've seen it with the 4 at the back, which does work. But there's nothing wrong with the 5 at the back system either. It's just about playing what's best with the players you've got available and who the opposition is. And I think that's what Steve Bruce hasn't done. He's trying to be really stubborn and stick with certain things, because if there's a system that we've played in the past that will work better, he just won't want to play it out of arrogance because he knows that's what worked for previous managers. And I think he just needs to grow up.
Yeah, Lily, I mean, he said the gloves were off after the Sheffield United game. That was when the dressing room unrest was at its height. I mean, we'd heard rumours on this show of ASM being booked on a flight and then not getting on it. Then he suddenly appeared in France in the middle of the COVID pandemic. So, there was a lot of confusion over whether St. Maximin was, pals with Bruce or not. Then we had Richie disappearing. Then we had, the Longstaff fallout, not one, but two. The gloves are off and did it my way. He's still trying to justify it. We had false nines, false tens, false eyelashes. We had a bit everything. But yeah, Lily, what's your take on what Bruce had to say about that? I think he's just tangled himself up in knots again, to be honest with that.
Yeah, I think he knew what he wanted to say, but because he'd started going, he couldn't stop himself. We all said he said the gloves were coming off, we're playing it my way, but then he never seemed to change anything. And same as Holly says, he's constantly, I had to play it this way because that's how the lads were more comfortable. Well, no, because you were the new manager, you could have said, right, that was how Rafa did it. I'm not Rafa. This is how I want to do it. But he didn't seem to want to do that either. It was more like, well, I'll just keep playing it because you seem to be doing okay. It's almost like he's got no ideas of his own kind of thing. So he's looking at old ways of playing, and then we had the injuries. And I just, is it a case of he's just like such an old head and the game isn't like that anymore? So he hasn't got a clue of what he's doing. And then the Graham Jones came in and he could say, well, that's why he came in, because I just needed a little bit more help. But I just think, I don't know, he never seemed to change anything anyway. We've just seemed to have been going around in one big massive circle. And like you said, players kept vanishing mysteriously, and there was arguments and there wasn't arguments, and there's a mole and there isn't a mole. And I just don't think he knows how to play or what he wants to play. And he's just still making it up as he goes along with fake 9s, 10s, like you said. And it's a shame, really, because I would have liked to have seen his way of play. But I don't think we ever have. And I don't think we're ever going to either. I think he's just going to continuously do what he's doing and hope for the best.
I've seen the results. I've seen the results at the other clubs he managed. You wouldn't want to see the way he used to play. I think the fact that he went back to Rafa's way was probably the best thing to do. Michelle, he's, the my way thing, the gloves are off. All of these sayings and things, crazy really. I think, we've established that Graham Jones had a major effect on the season, and we need to be thankful for that. But yeah, I mean, what's your views on what he's had to say about that whole, thing today? And referring Rafa, Holly's mentioned it already, but Rafa's a Champions League winner and got them out the championship like that. He's constantly referring back to Rafa. If anybody's mentioned him more than the media, it's him.
Do you think he feels like he's compared to him? So do you think he feels everyone's comparing him to that and expecting the same from him as what Rafa got? Do you know what I mean? I don't know if it is his lack of, whatever it is, he's got an old school head on him, and he can't think sort of outside of the box. Do you know what I mean? Like, he can't think for himself. Like, I know you've already said that, and obviously he's putting that into play when he's planning. He just doesn't have that. He doesn't have the technical sort of ability, does he, to be able to change things around and look at the opposition and plan the team and who he's got available. So not who's injured, it's who he's got available, how to best put that out on the park that night. But yeah, he does compare himself to him all the time, and I don't know if it is just because he feels he's compared to it, and is that his way of getting that across. I'm not sure, to be honest, but the gloves are off thing. I mean, I was expecting to see some change after that. I thought, he's up for this. He's showing a bit of passion. That's it. The gloves are off. Here I come. But what happened? I must have missed that one.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. It's just another load of flannel, I think, from Brucey. But I'll forgive him. He's kept us up. Callum Wilson to the Euros. Holly, Callum Wilson to the Euros. What he said on him was he offers something different. He plays on the shoulder. If the big teams push up and play a high line, you are running a risk with him. If you're getting a foot race with him, then he's going to be getting away from you. I'm going to be biased because what have he done for me? But I would certainly take him to the Euros. What's your thoughts on that? Is Callum Wilson going to get an international trip, do you think, this summer?
No, I don't think he will. I know he wanted to get in the international team, but I think Newcastle was the wrong team to join for that. We know Gareth Southgate doesn't really pick Newcastle players. There's been a certain lack of them over the years. Granted, we haven't had that many decent English players, but certainly now he's 29. He's not exactly the youngest. I know I'm not saying he's old, he still has got a few years, but you'd be wanting to look for someone younger if you were Gareth Southgate. Also, I think the strikers we already have in the England team are probably better than Callum Wilson, although I am a fan of his and he's done great things for Newcastle. But maybe as a backup, if there was an injury to one of the players, and put him in the squad just in case. But I really can't see him going this summer.
Lily, can you see Callum Wilson going to Euros?
No, for the same reason Holly said, and I think I've said it on the show before, people tend to think Leeds is as far north as you can get, so they don't tend to go any further than that. You've never seen Gareth Southgate watch a Newcastle game, so he's obviously got who he wants, who's got in mind, but at the same time, I agree with Holly as well with the fact, why can't he make the list? There is other better strikers out there, but he should be given a chance, but obviously he shouldn't have come to us because he's not going to get the chance that he wants, unfortunately. And it's a shame, really. So, yeah. No, I don't think... No, he's not going to pick him.
£20 million acquisition, best £20 million Newcastle United spent in my mind, Michelle. He's done the business for us in a pretty average Newcastle team with a less than average manager, and he still managed to get the goals which have helped keep us up. The injury issue, which we all worried about, did surface, but luckily he came back there to dig us out of a particular hole. Would you take him to the Euros? Do you think Gareth Southgate will?
Again, I don't think Southgate will. I agree, but we're too far up north for him to have a look at. But also, I think his age is against him as well. But just coming back from injury as well, and he hasn't been sort of in the limelight as much apart from the last couple of games. But I think that unfortunately there's better strikers out there to take, isn't there? But I agree, maybe a place on the subs depending on injury wise for the other strikers who are available. He might, you never know, he might. But I think he wouldn't be first, second choice, would he?
No, I mean, Harry Kane's, streets ahead, and I think there's plenty of people ahead of him. So, yeah, I can't see it happening. It's just one of those questions that they would ask. Why they didn't ask him who the mole was, I don't know. But it was a proper mate interview. That's what it was. I mean, I'm glad we've talked about it tonight. It's given us something a bit different to talk about. But yeah, I mean, it was like a best pals interview, and Bruce crowing a little bit as usual, Michelle.
Yeah, and I didn't hear it all. I watched some of it back when I could there, but I didn't hear it all. But I think because he knows them people who have interviewed him as well, they've not asked him certain questions anyway, have they? They've just let him say what he's wanted to say. So it's been a bit biased, really, hasn't it? If it was, say, for instance, Craig, he would have asked him what he wanted to ask him, wouldn't he?
Yeah, of course, he would. Let's just look ahead a little bit. It's only Friday, of course. Let's look ahead to Manchester City, and I mean, Holly, you'll be jumping on Match Day Live anyway with us. But Manchester City, hopefully after tonight's result, Newcastle United will be officially safe. We won't be saying, well, it's not mathematical, but yeah, I mean, it's a home game. We've got a pretty good track record against Manchester City at home in recent seasons, it has to be said. We've had some humdingers. Of course, we've had a 2-2 draw against them. Willems and Shelby scored. We won 2-1 when Rondon and Ritchie got that penalty. We had a 1-1 draw with Anita scoring, if you want to go a bit further back. So, there's been some results and there's been some games where Newcastle were up against it and expected to get nothing, but ultimately came back out with something. It's an 8 o'clock kick-off. It's live on Sky Sports. As we know, Lascelles, Hayden, Darlow and Fraser are all still out, and Fabian Shaw will still be suspended. Other than that, no other news as yet as to whether there was any injuries or things to be concerned about from the weekend's game. But how do you see that going? Are you particularly bothered, or would you like to see Newcastle give a really good go against Man City?
I always want to see Newcastle give a really good go. I've said before, like on Matchday Live, when people's like, "Oh, I'd settle for a point or whatever," and I'm always like, "No, never go into a game with that mindset. We want to win." And like, I'm always like that, though. There's no team that I'd be like, "Oh no, I'm happy for this." I always think we should go for the 3 points. Against Man City, it's never a top 6 side that I fear out of most of them, to be honest. I think because we have got a decent record against them, I think it's a chance we could get something. I'll probably predict a draw, to be honest, as long as we play very defensively. And we did it against Leicester, who is chasing Champions League, and they didn't look like that when we played against them. So why can we not do it against Man City?
Yeah, I would agree. Lily, over to you. I can see you doing your parenting duties there. Classic. They'll do anything to get on the show. I blame your husband.
The girls have been out to the park and they've come back looking like they've had a mud fight or something. It's just like, oh my gosh, what have you done? Yeah. Man City. We always want us to play well. Will you girls shush? I said I thought we'd beat Arsenal, and that was an epic fail, wasn't it? Really?
Yeah.
Will Man City have the flip flops on? Do you know what I mean? It's one of them, isn't it? I just want a good game, a decent performance. My twin. I just want them to play and play for them fans and play for themselves, because I think sometimes we just don't seem to care. And like I said, against City, if as long as they've won, do you know what I mean? I don't want it to be a game like I listened to the Derby game on Saturday, and that was so up and down. I thought my boss was going to have a nervous breakdown, and I think we're going to be getting a bit like that again. And I don't want it to be like that again.
The Champions League's a big thing. The Champions League's a big thing for Man City, and after losing to the team that they're going to play in the final, their mind is going to be on that. You're right. Flip-flops is certainly something that some of the players will be thinking about. But the others will be thinking, well, I don't want to get injured because I don't want to miss the biggest night of my football career. So there's going to be a lot of that. It's going to be interesting. How do you see it going, Lily?
I reckon. I say, like I said, for the Arsenal game, because he's going to be thinking of that. I don't think Pep's going to put out a full. I think he's probably going to use more of his B team, because like you said, he's not going to want to risk injuries and stuff. So I'd like to see it being a decent game, and who knows, a cheeky win for us, that would be fantastic. That'd do me. It's Dom's birthday on Thursday, so if we could win on Friday, that'd be fantastic. It'd make him happier. So yeah, but I don't know, we'll see. It's one of those. I'm not going to bother attempting to guess now because I keep getting it wrong. But I'd like us to win. That'd do me.
Yeah, we all want to win. Mark Henderson says, Holly, you need to host again against Man City. Hey, if you're up for doing it, you were good. Your fans want you to do it, so we'll have a chat. Michelle, your take on the Man City game coming up on Friday night?
Do you know what? I always find the games against the big clubs, like, really, sometimes we can turn up and do brilliantly. And look at Friday, we've had many results in the past where we've thought, oh, we're going to get hammered or we're going to get well. And we haven't. We've turned up and played really well. And I'm quite confident, actually, because I do think, because obviously Man City's heads are going to be in other places, that we might get a draw at least. I think if we're up for it and we show that, that passion and fight like we did against Leicester for 80 minutes. Why not? We showed them to be pretty normal team on that game, didn't we? Why can't we do it again? I'm pretty confident. I think we'll get a draw at least.
A draw at least. There you go. Well, you heard it here first. Bit of positivity to finish the night. Michelle, fantastic debut. Well done. Thank you for coming on. I hope you enjoyed it.
I did. Thanks for having us.
No, very good, and hopefully you can make it next Monday. But we'll add you to the group and we'll keep you in the loop. And Lily, thanks for coming on. And if I don't speak to you before, I hope Dom has a happy birthday on Friday and he gets the result we all hope for. Good stuff. And Holly, see you on Friday.
Yep, see you then. Bye, guys.
Look forward to it. Take care. Good night. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.
critics attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again. But it's the only